6.
I know they won last night, but that defense on the back end. Jared Goff, once again, is the strength of a team, and nobody wants to acknowledge it. In the last 2 weeks, he's completing 88% of his throws. They've got an over-the-top receiver. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have two backs I like, a great offensive line. Don't trust Dan Campbell in situational football. But here's the reality with Detroit. It is hard not to be a good team when you have a dominating running game and a dominating O-line and a very capable Super Bowl quarterback. They're just going to win a lot of games. They're going to mash a lot of people, and it's not always going to be pretty. I have Detroit at 6.
Yeah. It's so hard to not be intimidated by what the Lions can do offensively. That run game was just... Watching the game the other night versus Seattle, that run game, and there was obviously a lot to be excited about. Obviously, of course, Jared Goff going 18 for 18 and having a lot of, just exciting, dynamic, interesting play calling, right? Obviously, some trick plays. But it's just that run game that just, it fires me up, honestly. And it's so funny because I'm such a person, in a lot of ways, I'm the exact person that the NFL was trying to really cater to with a lot of the more passing and the throwing. And again, these Shanahan type, Ben Johnson type, McVay types with really imaginative offensive play calling and play designs, and the Patrick Mahomes of the world, right? These really mobile, interesting, right, video game type quarterbacks. In a lot of ways, I'm oh yeah, I love that it jumps off the screen. And traditionally, I never really cared too much about these runs, and it's just what I find the Lions doing. Just the physicality, right? And it is what Dan Campbell brings to that team. It's just the beast of it all, right? That feeling of if you're going to play us, we're playing grown up ball right now, right? There's that quote, and what Ray Lewis was saying when he was mic'd up, when he was playing, I think he was we're playing grown up ball now, or however he phrased it. And that's what it feels like. It's we're not here just for fun. In a lot of ways, Dan Campbell said at the end of that game, saying that was a track meet. And I get it, because it was a fast game, but it also felt really, really physical, right? I mean, the Lions can just feel like they're a bunch of warriors there, right? And that's what's so cool, because they have both sides of it, right? They have their brains and brawn, right? They can do the really exciting, dynamic, intelligent stuff, but then they're also can wear you down and just pulverize you. So it's hard not to feel like this team can just really do some damage. And I understand what Colin's saying, and I've talked about it as well, about the situational decision making and kind of having to button up and just be smarter in terms of in-game management. But if you shelve that, or if you can just continue to develop that, it's just so hard not to look at it. I mean, the way they're even dressed, their uniforms, it's just intimidating. I just feel like the Lions are genuinely an intimidating team right now. Even though the Vikings are flying high, and they are absolutely, without a doubt, the top team in the NFL, I don't know if they strike the same level of fear of what the Lions can do right now. Maybe it's because the Lions also have last year's success to kind of continue to build off of, and maybe it's just because I really am just enamored with their run game, and with that run game, it then opens an explosive passing game, obviously, as we saw, with just many weapons now from an offensive standpoint, not just Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jared Goff obviously continuing to get comfortable. It just feels like they have multiple cheat codes right now. And yeah, the defense could be better, right? The defense could be better. That was the whole hope of improving the defense from last year to this year. But even though the defense wasn't perfect, in a lot of ways they make up for it also with their physicality. I mean, you can see they tackle hard, right? You see it. It jumps off the screen to me, right? Even though they gave up a lot, a fair amount of points and a lot of yards, a ton of yards to Geno Smith, you could still see, though, that when it was time to get physical, when it was time to hit their guy, they were going after it, right? They were going after it, and that was the whole thing. When DK Metcalf was trying to get for extra yards, I mean, he just got swarmed, and then it led to a fumble. It was okay, fine. You want to stand up, you want to not go down, you're going to be punished. Prepare to pay the consequences. And that's what happened, and it led to a fumble, right? So it's just a hard-hitting physical defense. They probably I don't know if they're limited from a personnel standpoint, and maybe that's why their defense is lacking, or if it's just like they have to just continue to evolve from a game plan perspective, but it's definitely not effort. There's plenty of defenses that you see that it's just like they lack the effort, missed tackles, even their tackles alone. Like it's just not physical enough. And so much of a great defense is that physicality. And so to me, that's something that when I watch the Lions play, I'm like, all right, like they are definitely ready to play. They're definitely not ready to play. And again, I've seen plenty of teams around the league right now that don't always look fully prepared, ready to play. The Eagles, perfect example against the Bucks, right? They didn't look like they were ready to play. The Lions, even in a ugly game like versus the Lions, they're still ready to play, right? Even though the game plan of that game wasn't going according to plan and things were just not working out against the Bucks in that moment, they still were ready to go. Same thing with the Rams. Things were not going as originally as I believe they probably thought that first game was going to go, and yet they were still ready, right? They're not prepared. And that matters. That's going to pay massive dividends. And that is where Dan Campbell does get a tremendous amount of credit to be able to make sure that this team is prepared. They are ready. They are focused. They have that belief. And I think in a lot of ways, this is actually what Aaron Rodgers ironically said like a week ago, but definitely before his last game with the Broncos, where he said, what he learned from Mike McCarthy is like, it's easy to kind of be the underdog where everyone's kind of doubting you to kind of, to unify as a team. It's like, but it's harder to be able to stay together when you start to have success and you start to win. And in a lot of ways, I think that's what the Lions are going to have to be in the process of figuring out, right? How can they win? How can they no longer be the underdog, no longer the team that everyone's doubting or even rooting against? Because I feel like a lot of people are rooting for the Detroit Lions, and how to continue to do that. Because that was one of the things that I saw even with that trick play, right? You can see after that trick play, the Lions kind of like exhaled a little bit, right? They're all laughing and smiling and dancing and having fun. And I get it, right? Like, I'm not telling you not to have fun. I'm telling you to not get all excited and all that. But you could see that they started to kind of loosen up a little bit. And the Seattle Seahawks, because of that, were able to stay in the game and even, really make it kind of interesting near the end. And so it's just one of those things that, do those trick plays, get all excited, enjoy your success, but still understand there's still work to get done. And I believe Dan Campbell obviously deeply understands that. And I feel as though that the rest of the team will also deeply understand that as well. And I think it's just part of the process of feeling this out, week to week throughout this season. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Detroit Lions being number 6 on Colin Cowherd's herd hierarchy? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.